Hello, today I'm going to be talking about the ethics of technology in Ex Machina. Before I start this presentation, I'm going to talk about the machine ethics and cognitive status of AI in this article that I read named Ex Machina, Testing Machines for Consciousness in Socio-Relational Machine Ethics. So first of all, what are machine ethics? Machine ethics defend that we should treat AI as humans rather than objects. But this can be quite difficult because AIs are not conscious machines, they're unconscious. And so before giving them rights and treating them as living beings, we should be certain that they're sufficient of self-awareness, consciousness, and mindedness. And when treating machines, there are two types of people. Some people believe that it's sufficient grounds to reject even the possibility of having ethical responsibilities towards AI, whereas other people think that it's ethical to treat them responsibly. And according to this article, consideration should take priority over ontological debate. Now I'm going to talk about the Turing test that, according to this article, is not quite accurate because Searle's Chinese room thought experiment is an experiment that consists in human having to translate Chinese texts. And Searle says that if humans can translate Chinese texts and articles without thinking, then machines can pass the Turing test without really understanding what they're doing. I'm going to start off by talking about the power dynamics that are present in this movie. So first of all, Nathan has a very big sense of hubris. He sees himself as a god, and in fact, towards the beginning of the movie, when Caleb realizes that Nathan has created an AI, he tells him, "If you've created a conscious machine, that's not the history of man, that's the history of gods." And this quote just basically adds to Nathan's God complex. And Nathan expresses this hubris in his demeanor, his language, his actions. He basically just comes off as a very confident person, but his confidence blinds him to thinking that he has total control over Ava and Kyoko. And in fact, towards the end of the movie, at the end of the movie, we can clearly see this power shift between Nathan and Ava when Ava determines his fate instead of Nathan determining Ava's fate. And she does this by murdering him. And Nathan not only asserts power over Ava and Kyoko, he basically has dominance over Caleb, who is quite timid, he's very naive, and he craves validation from someone like Nathan, who appears very knowledgeable. And also Nathan also manipulates Ava and Kyoko. Obviously, he created them and he owns them, so he obviously asserts a lot of power over them. Now I'm going to talk about manipulation and control in this movie. I'm going to start off by talking about how Nathan manipulates Caleb. So there's many ways in which Nathan manipulates Caleb. The first and main one is that all along Caleb thinks that he has won this contest to spend a week with his employer in a laboratory, when all along it was all planned. Nathan had chosen Caleb specifically, and it was not at all arbitrary, which Caleb has no idea about during the majority of the movie. A second way he manipulates Caleb is by telling him that Caleb is the one that's going to be testing Ava, but all along it was Nathan testing Caleb to see if he would side with the AI machine instead of the human being Nathan. And by doing this, he creates these power breakdowns during which the cameras are supposedly broken and Nathan cannot see Caleb and Ava interact. And during these power breakdowns, Ava tells Caleb that Nathan cannot be trusted, that he shouldn't, basically just shouldn't trust Nathan. And with that information later on, when Nathan interrogates Caleb about the breakdowns and what happened during them, because he couldn't see what was going on, Caleb actually sides with the machine instead of the human Nathan, proving why Nathan wanted to test Caleb to see if he would side with an artificial intelligence, basically. And not only does Nathan manipulate Caleb, but Ava also manipulates Caleb in the way that she targets his human vulnerabilities and really pretends to be a sentient being when she's not. And she was pretending all along, trying to gain Caleb's trust, and she used him as a means for her escape. And we can clearly see this towards the end when she abandons him to be locked up in the room, and then she just escapes. And lastly, there is a big lack of privacy in this movie. Nathan, he has cameras everywhere in the house, and especially he surveys Ava 24/7, as well as Caleb. There is a big lack of privacy, especially during the interactions when Caleb and Ava are interacting. Nathan is always aware of what's going on, even in the power breakdowns that Caleb thinks that the cameras are broken. Now I'm going to talk about the ethical responsibility and accountability in the movie. I'm going to start off by talking about Nathan, who has a very important role when addressing this topic, because he is the creator of Ava and Kyoko, and along with the many other artificial intelligences. Secondly, I'm going to talk about Caleb, who starts to feel responsible for Ava and her situation, and how he's the one who should be helping her out after realizing how Nathan is being unethical with his decisions. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the importance of being responsible and being held accountable for one's actions when creating something like AI and potentially introducing it to our society. So first of all, Nathan, being very rich and wealthy, he's very powerful because he owns this multi-billion-dollar industry. He doesn't need to worry about being ethically responsible when creating AIs that he uses basically as tools. And he doesn't recognize the ethical implications of his actions, and because he just keeps on doing it and he doesn't see a problem. And not only doesn't see a problem in doing so, but he doesn't see that it could be harmful to him, to Caleb, and to society in general. And also Nathan, he's portrayed as this immense tech mogul who has a lot of connections, a lot of resources, and that kind of insulates him from having to be held accountable for his actions. Now I'm going to talk about Caleb, who feels somewhat responsible for Ava's situations, and he puts matter in his own hands, trying to come up with a plan to free Ava and let her escape. And this just shows how he realizes that Nathan's actions are very unethical, and Caleb is aware that Nathan isn't being held accountable for his actions. And lastly, I'm going to talk about how Ex Machina encourages us as humans to be aware of what we're creating, how we're creating it, and if we do create it, how we're going to introduce it to society without being too harmful, because the movie clearly shows that it can be harmful. And so it's important to be held accountable for our actions before creating something so technologically advanced like an artificial intelligence and just blindly introducing it to society without knowing the risks that could potentially occur. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the dehumanization of AI in Ex Machina. So, although Ava and Kyoko are not human, they're made of material objects, they look just like humans. They have the facial features of humans, the body parts of humans, they have hair, they have skin. And so the fact that they look so much like humans is very concerning considering how Nathan treats them. So first of all, Nathan isolates the AI from each other so they cannot interact with other AIs. And he does this to be able to exert more control and more influence on their robotic development and their robotic interactions. And so he's basically using their isolation to his own purposes, for his own purposes. And Ava, but especially Kyoko, is being used for very unethical and dehumanizing reasons. So it's clear, it's evident that Nathan created Kyoko to be his servant and to give him company. So he uses her once again for his own pleasures and his own desires. And lastly, a scene that really shocked me was when Caleb enters the closet filled with naked AI. And this just emphasizes the dehumanizing effects of technology that's represented in Ex Machina, and also the unethical reasons why Nathan started creating more and more AI in the first place. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.